Hi, my name is Jenny and I'm freshman. My number is 35 and the topic today is Pamela Meyer, how to spot a liar. Okay, now I don't want to alarm anybody in this room, but it's just come to my attention that the person to your right is a liar. Laughter. Also, the person to your left is a liar. Also, the person sitting in your very seat is a liar. We are all liars. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to show you what the research says about why we are all liars, how you can become a lie spotter, and what you might want to go the extra mile and go from lie spotting to truth seeking, and ultimately to trust building. Now, speaking of trust, ever since I wrote this book, Lie Spotting, no one wants to meet me in person anymore. No. They say, it's okay, we will email you. Laughter. I can't even get a coffee date at Starbucks. My husband's like, honey, deception. Maybe you could have focused on cooking. How about French cooking? So before I get started, what I'm going to do is I'm going to clarify my goal for you, which is not to teach a game of gotcha. Lie spotter on those nitpicky kids, those kids in the back of the room that are shouting, gotcha. Your eyebrow twitched. You flared your nostril. I watched that TV show, Lie to Me. I know you are lying. No, lie spotters are armed with scientific knowledge with how to spot deception. They use it to get to the truth, and they do what mature leaders do every day. They have difficult conversations with difficult people, sometimes during very difficult times, and they start up that path by accepting a core proposition. And that proposition is the following. Lying is a cooperated act. Think about it. A lie has no power whatsoever by its mere utterance. Its power emerges when someone else agrees to believe the lie. So I know it may sound like tough love, but look, if at some point you got lied to, it's because you agreed to get lied to. Truth number one about lying. Lying is a cooperative act. Now, not all lies are harmful. Sometimes we are willing participants in deception for the sake of social dignity. Maybe to keep a secret that should be kept secret. We say, nice song. Honey, you don't look fat in that. No. Or we say, favorite of the digerated. You know, I just fished that email out of my spam folder, so sorry. But there are times when we are unwilling participants in deception, and that can have dramatic costs for us. Last year saw $997 billion in corporate fraud alone in the United States. That's an eyelash under $1 trillion. That's 7% of revenues. Deception can cost billions. Think Aaron Madoff, the mortgage crisis, or in the case of double agents and traitors, like Robert Hansen or Aldrich Ames. Lies can betray our country. They can compromise our security. They can undermine democracy. They can cause the death of those that defend us. Deception is actually serious business. Let's comment Henry Oberlander. He was such an effective comment. British authorities said he could have undermined the entire banking system of the Western world. And you can't find this guy on Google. You can't find him anywhere. He was interviewed once, and he said the following. He said, look, I've got one rule. And this was Henry's rule. He said, look, everyone is willing to give you something. They are ready to give you something for whatever it is they are hungry for. And that's the crux of it. If you don't want to be deceived, you have to know what is it you are hungry for. And we all kind of hate to admit it. We wish we were better husbands, better wives, smarter, more powerful, taller, richer. The list goes on. Lying is an attempt to bridge the gap, to connect our wishes and our fantasy about who we wish we were, how we wish we could be, with that we are really like. And boy are willing to fill in those gaps in our lives with lies. On a given day, studies show that you may be lied to anywhere from 10 to 200 times. Now granted, many of those are white lies, but in another story, it showed that strangers lie 3 times within the first 10 minutes of meeting each other. Laughter. Now, when we first hear this data, we recoil. We can't believe how prevalent lying is. We're essentially against lying, but if you look more closely, the plot actually thickens. We lie more to strangers than we lie to co-workers. Extroverts lie more than introverts. Men lie 8 times more about themselves than can do other people. Women lie more to protect other people. If you are an average married people, you are going to lie to your spouse in 1 out of every 10 interactions. Now, you may think that's bad. If you are unmarried, the number drops to 3. Lying's complex. It's woven into the fabric of our daily and our business life. We are deeply ambivalent about the truth. We press it out on an as-needed basis, sometimes for very good reasons, other times just because we don't understand that gaps in our life. That's truth number 2 about lying. We are against lying, but we are covertly for it in ways that our society has sanctioned for centuries and centuries and centuries. It's as old as breathing. It's part of our culture. It's part of our history. Think Dennett, Shakespeare, the Bible, news of the world. Laughter. Lying has evolutionary value to us as a species. Researchers have long known that the more intelligent the species, the larger the neocortex, the more likely it is to be deceptive. Now you might remember Coco. Does anybody remember Coco, the gorilla who was taught sign language? Coco was told to communicate via sign language. Here's Coco with her kitten. It's her cute little fluffy pet kitten. Coco once blamed her pet kitten for ripping a sink out of the wall. Laughter. We are hardwired to become leaders of the pack. It starts really, really early. How early? Well, babies will fake a cry, pause, wait to see who's coming, and then go right back to crying. 1-year-olds learn concealment. Laughter. 2-year-olds bluff. 5-year-olds lie outright. They manipulate via flattery. 9-year-olds, masters of the cover-up. By the time you enter college, you are going to lie to your mom in 1 out of every 5 interactions. By the time we enter this work world and we are breadwinners, we enter a world that is just clouded with spin, fake digital friends, partisan media, ingenious identity thieves, world-class Ponzi schemers, a deception epidemic. In short, what one author calls a pass-through society. It's been very confusing for a long time now. What do you do? Well, there are steps we can take to navigate our way through the morass. trained lie spotters get to the truth 90% of the time. The rest of us, we are only 54% accurate. Why is it so easy to learn? There are good liars and bad liars. There are no real original liars. We all make the same mistakes. We all use the same techniques. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you 2 patterns of deception. And then we're going to look at the hotspots and see if we can find them ourselves. We're going to start with speech. Video. Bill Clinton, I want you to listen to me. I'm going to say this again. I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Miss Lewinsky. I never told anybody to lie. Not a single time, never. And these allegations are false. And I need to go back to work for the American people. Thank you. Applause. Pamela Meyer. Okay. What were the telltale signs? We first heard what's known as a non-contracted denial. Studies show that people who are overdetermined in their denial will resort to formal rather than informal language. We also heard distancing language, that woman. We know that liars will unconsciously distance themselves from their subject, using language as their tool. Now, if Bill Clinton had said, well, to tell you the truth, or Richard Nixon's favorite, in all candor, he would have been a dead giveaway for any lie spotter that knows that qualifying language as it's called. Qualifying language like that further discredits the subject. Now, if it had repeated the questions in its entirety, or if he had peppered his account with a little too much detail, and we are all really glad that he didn't do that, he would have further discredited himself. Freud had it right. Freud said, okay, there's much more to it than speech. No mortal can keep a secret. If his lips are silent, he chatters with his fingertips. And we all to do it matter how powerful you are. We all chatter with our fingertips. I'm going to show you the manic drugs can with Obama who's chattering with his fingertips. Laughter. Now this brings us to our next patterns, which is body language. With body language, here's what you have got to do. You've really got to just throw your assumptions out the door. That assigns temper your knowledge a little bit, because we think liars fidget all the time. Well, guess what? We're known to freeze their upper bodies when they are lying. We think liars won't look you in the eyes. Well, guess what? They look you in the eyes a little too much just to compensate for that myth. We think warmth and smiles convey honesty, sincerity, but a trained lie spotter can spot a fake smile a mile away. Can you all spot that fake smile here? You can consciously contract the muscles in your cheeks, but the real smiles in the eyes, the crow's feet of the eyes, they cannot be consciously contracted, especially if you overdid the buttocks. Don't overdo the buttocks. Nobody will think you are honest. Now we are going to look at the hotspots. Can you tell what's happening in a conversation? Can you start to find the hotspots to discrepancies between someone's words and someone's actions? Now I know it seems really obvious, but when you are having a conversation with someone you suspect of deception, attitude is by far the most overlooked but telling of indicators. An honest person is going to be cooperative. They are going to show they are on your side. They are going to be enthusiastic. They are going to be willing and powerful to getting you to the truth. They are going to be willing to brainstorm, name suspects, provide details. They are going to say, hey, maybe it was those guys in payroll that forged those checks. They are going to be infuriated if they sense they are wrongly asked you throughout the entire course of the interview, not just in flashes. They will be infuriated throughout the entire course of the interview. And if you ask someone honest what should happen to whomever did forge these checks, an honest person is much more likely to recommend strict rather than lenient punishment. Now, let's say you are having the exact same conversation with someone deceptive. That person may be withdrawn, look down, lower their voice, pause, be kind of herky-jerky. Ask a deceptive person to tell their story. They are going to pepper it with way too much detail in all kinds of irrelevant places, and then they are going to tell their story in strict chronological order. And what a trained interrogator does is they come in and in very subtle ways over the course of several hours. They will ask that person to tell that story backwards, and then they will watch them scream. And track with questions produce the highest volume of deceptive tales. What do they do that? Well, we all do the same thing. We rehearse our words, but we rarely rehearse our gestures. We say yes, we shake our heads no. We tell very convincing stories. We slightly shrug our shoulders. We committed terrible crimes, and we smile at the delight in getting away with it. Now, that smile is now in the trade as dumping delight. And we are going to see that in several videos moving forward. But we are going to start. For those you don't know him, this is presidential candidate John Edwards, who shocked America by fathering a child out of wedlock. We are going to see him talk about getting a paternity test. See now if you can spot him saying yes while shaking his head no, slightly shrugging his shoulders. Video, John Edwards. I'd be happy to participate in one. I know that it's not possible that this child could be mine because of the timing of events. So I know it's not possible. Happy to take the paternity test and would love to see it happen. Interviewer, are you going to do that soon? Is there somebody? J.E. Well, I'm only one side of the test, but I'm happy to participate in one. PM. Okay, those head shakes are much easier to spot once you know to look for them. There are going to be times when someone makes one expression while masking another that just kind of leaks through in a flash. Mothers are known to leak sadness. Your new joint venture partner might shake your hand, celebrate, go out to dinner with you, and then leak an expression of anger. And we are not all going to become factual expression expert overnight here. But there's one I can teach you that's very dangerous and it's easy to learn. And that's the expression of contempt. Now, with anger, you have got two people on an even playing field. It's still somewhat of a healthy relationship. But when anger turns to contempt, you have been dismissed. It's associated with moral superiority, and for that reason, it's very, very hard to recover from. Here's what it looks like. It's marked by one lip corner pulled up and in. It's the is the only asymmetrical expression, and in that presence of contempt, whether or not deception follows, and it doesn't always follow, look the other way, go other direction, reconsider the deal, say, no, thank you, I'm not counting up for just one more nightcap, thank you. Science has surfaced many more indicators, and we know, for example, we know liars will shift their blink rate, point their feet towards an exit. They will take barrier objects and put them between themselves and the person that is interviewing them. They will alter their vocal tone, often making their vocal tone much lower. Now, here's the deal. These behaviors are just behaviors. They are not proof of deception. They are red flags. We are human beings. We make deceptive flagging gestures all over the place all day long. They don't mean anything in and of themselves. But when you see cluster of them, that's your signal. Look, listen, probe, ask some hard questions. Get out of that very comfortable mode of knowing. Walk into curiosity mode. Ask more questions. Have a little dignity. Treat the person you are talking to with rapport. Don't try to be like those folks on Law and Order and those other TV shows that pummel their subjects into submission. Don't be too aggressive. It doesn't work. Now, we've talked a little bit about how to talk to someone who's lying and how to spot a lie. And as I promised, we are now going to look at what the truth looks like. But I'm going to show you two videos, two mothers. One is lying, one is telling the truth. And these were surfaced by researcher David Matsumoto in California. And I think they are an excellent example of what the truth looks like. This mother, Danny Downs, shot her kids at close range, drove them to a hospital while they bled out of the car. Claims straggly-haired stranger did it. And you will see when you see the video, she can't even pretend to be an agonizing mother. What you want to look for here is an incredible discrepancy between horrific events that she describes and her very cool demeanor. And if you look closely, you will see dumping delight throughout this video. Danny Downs. At night, when I close my eyes, I can see Christine reaching her hand out to me while I'm driving, and the blood just kept coming out of her mouth, and that maybe it will fade with time, but I don't think so. That bothers me the most. PM. Now I'm going to show you a video of an actual grieving mother, Erin Renew, confronting her daughter's murder and torture in court. Here you are going to see no false emotion, just the authentic expression of a mother's agony. Video. Erin Reunion. I wrote this statement on the third anniversary of the night you took my baby, and you hurt her, and you crushed her. You terrified her until her heart stopped, and she fought, and I know she fought you. But I know she looked at you with those amazing brown eyes, and you still wanted to kill her, and I don't understand it, and I never will. PM. Okay, there's no doubting the accuracy of those emotions. Now the technology around what the truth looks like is progressing on, the science of it. We know, for example, that we now have specialized eye trackers and infrared brain scans, MRIs that can decode the signals that our bodies send out when we are trying to be deceptive. And these technologies are going to be marketed to all of us as passes for deceit, and they will provide incredibly useful someday. But you've got to ask yourself in the meantime, what do you want on your side of the meeting? Someone who's trained in getting to the truth, or some guy who's going to drag a 400-pound